The equivalent of a small car goes inside and outside a home every day. It's about 450 gallons. That weighs 8 pounds a gallon. And so you're moving a huge amount that you would never grocery shop for. It's hidden, out of sight, out of mind. And so we have become disconnected from our water, which I think is the biggest challenge to affirming the value of it or helping people conserve and manage it better.
Mary Conley Eggert traces her career in water back to age 10, when 30-foot mounds of pollution built up around the river running through her backyard. She spent the next 30 years in tech and financial services, helping investors and financial advisors get comfortable with markets and products they couldn't easily see the value of. In more recent years, she brought the same instinct to water, founding Global Waterworks to connect the people solving water problems with the people who need them. Mary's background is in finance, an industry built around measuring return. That same logic is what she brought to water. So if we need to look at sort of the business case for water, because folks will conserve what's valuable or they'll promote water innovation if there's a return on investment. So if you're looking at that business case, how do you create that around water? And does that really help solve the problem?
I thought it would, really. I think when we entered the water space, the reason we entered was because there was another case put out, the 2030 report put out by Milken and the World Bank, that talked about a 40% gap between the supply and demand of water, and the fact that by 2030, the reason it's called 2030, we would have only enough water for 6 out of 10 people in the world.
That's
and
scary.
It was pretty scary. So my colleagues and I got together and said, we've got to do something. It seems like there are innovations that exist that allow for conservation and management, metering and leak detection. There is plenty of water from what we can see. We're right here by the Great Lakes, but it seems like there's a communications gap with managing water. And so we did was put together a Global Waterworks, seeing all of these solutions at WEFTech in the marketplace. And then we were invited to participate in the Israel, California conference to create that business case. Case was underway, and we were so excited that finally we would have a business case, so we should be able to solve this problem for addressing that gap in that 2030 report. Well, we all know Israel does do an amazing job with water. They have a water-saving culture, and they have a variety of technologies for innovation. They have water rates that penalize people who use above average levels or create increasingly higher costs, so you become aware of what you're using. But they partnered with California to create this business case, and Milken funded it. And it was really fun to be involved, and involved a variety of technologies applied to a utility that allowed for leak detection and allowed for conservation and water reuse, and then different rate structures for different types of water. And they showed that by applying all of these technologies, you could save 30% of the water, and still the utility would have double-digit returns because of the price structures for the water use. Israel does not view water as a cheap asset. They actually value water. And I think that's perhaps the biggest challenge in the US. Well, we pay, $1,700 for a cell phone. We expect to pay $100 for our water, and that's what's sustaining life. And the cell phone isn't doing quite that.
When water's value isn't obvious, it's easy to treat it as optional. But even proof that it pays off doesn't always change what people do. So you and I both know that data alone isn't enough to change behavior. So people respond to something urgent, something emotional. So what have you seen that actually changes behavior, that makes people do things differently?
A crisis, Susan. What I see change behavior is a crisis. We entered the water sector at a time right before Flint, and all of a sudden the lead crisis in Flint caused everyone to change behavior, and that lead became an issue around the nation. I wish data would change behavior, but we actually brought in a device from Europe that took 3 minutes to show everyone can have 30% water savings, 10% energy savings. No one would take the 3 minutes to do it. Time is so valuable.
Wow.
So, yeah. But the payoff for paying attention before a crisis is that it takes 6 times the cost to recover from a flood, a fish kill, or one of these incidents that it costs to prevent it through smart technologies.
Crisis is one way to get people's attention, but it's not the only way. Mary's seen change happen on a much smaller scale, too, starting with a single lake near her home. It's a reminder that you don't need a disaster to start paying attention.
I live just north of Chicago, a village called Libertyville, and right by Lake Michigan. Have always lived on rivers or lakes, and we have a lake down the street. And everyone would say, "Mary, you work on water. Tell me, why can't you fix this lake in our area, which is covered with algae blooms and just a problem? And by midsummer, it's pretty much green and warm and not good for fish or people." But I said, everyone knows there are phosphorus problems, and these algae blooms are just the result of ongoing use and pollution flowing into our lakes. So I was told there was no solution. And then I was at a conference in India where I learned there's a beautiful solution that combines enzymes and aeration that accelerates the digestion of the pollutants so that the lake can actually thrive again and be cleared up of this muck. So I came home and assembled a group to meet on that and to share the news of these solutions. And it's blossomed into a wonderful nonprofit in its own right, Lake County Lake Lovers. And a beautiful result of that, Susan, is the data. We now have biweekly data, and we just got off our lake and this morning measuring it and saw that the temperature rose 20 degrees from 60 to 80 degrees, and the oxygen dropped from 8 milligrams per liter to just 4 milligrams per liter. And it's hypoxic when it's 2 milligrams per liter. So a little too much detail here, but the reality is that summer and weather influences the lake health and the oxygen in the lake. And what data has done for a number of our lakes is it's enabled them to go back to their HOAs and other groups who have come alongside their adopted efforts and said, we'll share in funding. And those who gave up fireworks to fund a lake restoration said their lakes have never been better. It's a beautiful outcome of data applied to a problem that's informing action.
Wow, that's great. One lake turned into a citizen-run movement. Some communities have taken that same idea and built it directly into their infrastructure. It's proof that this doesn't have to start from the ground up every time. So, Mary, have you seen anything work to change the culture around water?
I'm so glad you asked, because there's actually an amazing example in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Melissa Meeker heads up the water tower there, which is funded by their local municipality. And I think if every utility had a hub where people could talk about water, learn about water jobs, and see water innovations like she has established there with a great team of people. And she would never take credit for it, but it's been an incredible influence. And they are rated the number 2 utility, I believe, in the nation last time I looked, and just have access to employees as a result. They have innovation flowing through there. They're a super efficient and profitable utility. And it's a beautiful space, which just brings people in touch with water in a way that is very encouraging and growing that economy as well.
It sounds like a group that would be a great framework, an example for other areas of the country. So that's wonderful. Is there any kind of final thought that you'd like to leave our listeners with as we think about water?
The more I learn about water, the less I realize I know about water. It is the most exciting industry to be involved in. I think it impacts us, our own personal health. It impacts our leisure. It impacts our economies. And if everyone were invested in water and cared about it so that they would inform the next person, hey, even a group blesses their water because water has a memory. There's a group like that. So it's really worth being involved in water. And I just give a big shout out to all of you who work daily in water to conserve it, to steward it well, and to ensure that we are all healthy because we have good fresh water. So I give a toast to you, Susan, for that.
Across this conversation, Mary described water's value showing up in different forms. A spreadsheet proving your utility could conserve without losing money. A neighborhood that decided to act before anyone forced them to. And a whole institution built to keep water in front of people every day. Each one made the same thing visible in a different way. If this episode changed how you think about the true value of water, please share it with someone who should hear it. Follow the leak in the system, and I'll see you next time.